gals and gals. Yep, it's me. HSPP. Holy smoking pipe padre. Coming back at you. Let's see, I think, you know what, I don't have any headphones tonight, so I'm hoping that this little microphone is working. Okay. So I'm smoking some How the Wind again in a Peterson, this is one of my beloved Petersons with the P-lip. So you can see that. Desperately in need of a good polish, as many of my pipes are. And so smoking some How the Wine, sipping on a little Spindrift soda, talking to you on this summer evening. I guess this might be my first August video, so hopefully you're all doing well, and as we're kind of in the home stretch of summer. It goes by fast. We're halfway through our summer season up here at the lake, and it's been a very busy summer, been a very, I think, fruitful summer, and so we're doing really well. And so this weekend, it's, I guess, the fourth or fifth Sunday where I do three extra masses. Well, one extra mass, but three total on a Sunday morning. And it makes for a very busy morning. Kind of I'd say exhilarating, invigorating kind of a morning. But I think we're about the halfway mark now of those masses. And summer is coming. I mean, we will be soon in late summer. And before you know it, fall and winter will be here. So, how y'all doing? So, I'm making, hopefully this microphone's working. This is the AKG mic, which is a very, very high-end professional mic. Kind of have a series of mics that I like to use. It all's kind of, you know what? I can honestly say this. It all started with a special mic I'm going to show you. Some of you, I know there's a couple of you out there that are really into the audio, video world, and some of you are actually professionals in that world. But I've always been intrigued with audio and videography, just always been intrigued with it. Ever since I was probably a teenage boy and building a haunted house with my buddy Rich up in our neighborhood, and wiring speakers underneath stairs and special places and trees where they were to play spooky scary sounds and scary quote unquote music and things like that. And so it always, and then I got my first tape recorder. That was a lot of fun. I even have, I probably have a few recordings of myself as a young person. But those, and I digress. But anyway, when it kind of got really serious for me, and some of you are going to laugh at this, there was a company called Radio Shack. Many of you remember Radio Shack. And Radio Shack was really cool. If you were into actually building like transistor radios and ham radios, I guess, and just, tinkering with electronics, that was the place to go. And they had all sorts of cool stuff. And but they also sold some interesting products. So when I was in the Marine Corps many, many decades ago now, and my best buddy, who again has been on the channel, maybe we'll get him back on here in the not too distant future. I'm kind of hoping to do that. So he went out and got himself a Pioneer tape deck. Really, and it had this really cool semi-dome cover, and it just looked so futuristic, and it was just, I think even Steve Jobs would have liked this, would have liked this design. It was just a really elegant design, and it was a high-end, at the time, a high-end stereo component. And I just remember my buddy got one, and then we used to make cassette letters. I used to do that a lot with all my closest friends, because a lot of times I lived far, far away from them, and so instead of writing a long letter, I would just make a little cassette tape, and I'd send them, and then after a while they would maybe send me one back, and it was always nice to hear their voice and hear their stories, and it was just great. So my friend Don got the Pioneer tape deck, and to go with it, to make audio recordings, he got this. This is now this is not the original one that I had many, many years ago. Unfortunately, I think I made a mistake. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I hadn't used, this is one he bought for me about a year ago. And he said, maybe this mic will work. And then it's a little condenser mic. It's got a battery in here. Yeah, there's the battery right there. And so anyway, but I got to tell you, the first time I heard a recording using this on that Pioneer tape deck, I was amazed. In fact, there's a portion of an audio letter that he sent to me when I was in the Marines, and you can hear very clearly his mom going, "Don," and he goes, "What?" because he had headphones on, but I heard it also, and I thought, is Mrs. B around here? I mean, it sounded just like she was in the other room. And again, the sound recording was so high fidelity, so realistic, that this was just amazing. So I got a Pioneer tape deck like his a couple months later, and I got the microphone, and I just loved it. And I held on to the microphone for probably 30 years, and then it was about now going almost 20 years ago. Wow. Boy, it's hard to believe. I was living in this little cottage on a winery, and just got back from, been in the military for a number of years, and then I got out and was a prison chaplain for a number of years. Anyway, I was living there, and I still had this, and it was still in my closet somewhere, and it was in the box, the original box, and I got the original box with this one too. So for all intents and purposes, this is identical to the one I originally had. So here's the thing though, coming back, 40, 50 years later, almost, trying to plug it in to the newer technology, it just wouldn't work. I thought, what's going on? Of course I checked the battery, and then I checked the connections and everything. And anyway, lo and behold, that famous Broadway musical team, I kind of gave up on it. I tried every way I could to think of to try to get this into an audio interface. I got some new audio interfaces. And in fact, I was talking to my audio technician back at Sweetwater, who we buy all of our music and our sound equipment from. They do a great job. And his name is Ty. And so anyway, he was saying, it was funny. I said, well, Ty, what do you recommend? What do you say I do? What I do? How can I get this microphone to plug into like a MacBook or an iPad or an iPhone? And what do you recommend? And he goes, well, that microphone's so old, I recommend that you don't even worry about it. Don't even try. Just forget about it. Well, here's the thing. The other day, which kind of renewed my interest in this, I watched a video, and this gets a little inane, and I'm sorry I get a little techie sometimes on you, but see, this is the 3.5 stereo millimeter jack. That's the standard one that's been forever and ever and ever, amen. You just plug it into whatever and the thing works. Not so much with MacBooks and computers, and it's just a different animal. Because what you really need, now this is only part of the equation, there's another, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but what you need, this is a TRS connector. Oh, and it focused so automatic, I love that. But what you really need is a TRRS connector, tip, ring, sleeve. And so, but here's the thing, just out of curiosity, I have a little GoPro, maybe you can see them back there, little GoPros. I plugged it in, and the doggone thing worked. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. 1 2. 1 2 test. Testing 1 2 3. Okay. Trying the testing. 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 Okay. Testing. I'm using the realistic stereo mic. I think it's working. Okay. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing. 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 Okay. See how that works. It's not broken. It's not burned out. I thought maybe I had fried it, or it over the years, because this came from I guess it was an eBay. My friend bought it on eBay for me about a year ago. And maybe the person, when they sold it, they assumed that it worked. And I assumed that mine worked. And then when it didn't, when I started trying to plug it into all the new electronic digital stuff, nada por nada, okay? So I think I just boxed it up and gave it to Goodwill. You know, it's like didn't have the heart to throw it out. But I thought, well, maybe somebody somewhere might be able to get it to work. I can't. So anyway, but there's nothing wrong with the mic. Now, to be sure, it's an old condenser mic, and again, it doesn't interface with a lot of the modern audio equipment or video equipment. But there's a couple of workarounds, and then I think I ordered some other cables that might work. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm reasonably confident that maybe I have found a workaround to get this to initialize and recognize in my software now that it's but it works. And I was really delighted to know that this, older, obviously almost, you could probably call it legacy or antique even, it's almost like a Victrola, you wind it up in the big horn, or not a Victrola, but those wax cylinders. Yeah, it's like, Watson, come into the room, that kind of thing. Dr. Bell here. Watson, come into the room. Anyway, so the thing is that it's just one of those things that I kind of, fixate on. I love it. I think I talked about this in the last video, people that take older technology and they marry it up with the newer stuff. And to me, I just think that, I'm amazed at that. That's, to me, shows ingenuity, creativity, problem solving. I just love that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just a little thing that kind of, it's like a little puzzle, I guess. It's like a little, thought puzzle, So now I'm here to talk about the Sweeney controversy. Yeah. But first, I wanted to talk about this pipe and a little story that goes with this pipe. Now, when I got this pipe, it was back in probably 87, 88, summer of 87, 88. No, yeah, probably one of those two summers. Right about this time. And during the summertime, seminarians became cemeterians. We'd work in a cemetery. And basically, we would be picking up the dead flowers and preparing the site for a funeral, a gravesite, and things like that. And, mopping the mausoleum and cleaning the windows and doing a lot of yard work and all that kind of stuff, most of it. And so those summers were, the first two summers were, how many, I probably did 4 summers. working. Yeah, I think I did 4 summers as a seminarian, working in the cemetery. And then the last summer, I got a chance to do something completely different. Got to put on uniform again and become a Navy chaplain candidate, which I loved. Went to San Diego, and yeah, that was great. That's a story for another time. But when I was working in the cemetery, and so I remember I was living in Citrus Heights, and they had the Sunrise Mall at the time. I don't know if Sunrise Mall is closing. I've heard stories that it's not doing so well. They may close the mall there if they haven't already. I hope they don't. But anyway, they had a tinderbox there, and I love the old-fashioned tinderbox. I'm sure I've talked about that also in other videos. But anyway, the guy's name was Bob Buwalda. He was the manager, and I guess he was the owner. He owned one of the franchises. Nice guy, and he was really a good salesman, but he was just a really nice guy to talk to. Anyway, I remember probably getting one of my first paychecks, and I saw this beautiful Basil Rathbone replica of a Peterson. Well, it's a Peterson, but it's a Basil Rathbone replica of the kind of the ones that he used to smoke in the Sherlock Holmes movies. And I think there's like a little collection of these. I only got the one, but this is the one I wanted. And I remember I was just so excited, and I remember taking it home. Now, here was the problem though. I was at the time living in the rectory because I was now a seminarian. So technically I was able to live in the rectory. And we had, I was living in a rectory that had this old Monsignor. And he, for lack of a better term, he was just a kind of an old curmudgeon. And I guess he had been a former smoker at one time. And anyway, he had his rules. And there was absolutely, smoking was verboten in that rectory. You couldn't even light a birthday candle, without even going apoplectic, because of smoke, So anyway, I remember getting this pipe, and I remember just sitting on the back, actually the back 40 near the schoolyard there. We had a little school. And I just remember enjoying, a pipe. It was just, it was a de-stressor for me. And the tobacco, I think I had an English blend, which I really loved smoking in the Petersons. And I just remember it was our early summer evening, just sitting outside, kind of waving off some of the mosquitoes. But for the most part, just enjoyed a wonderful, peaceful, tranquil moment with this pipe. But then, after I, gently tapped out the ashes and I put it in my little pocket, I thought, uh-oh. Because this Monsignor, he was just really keen on everything. And I thought, even though I'm not going to be technically smoking in the rectory, which I wouldn't do in the first place, he may smell smoke on me because I was smoking the pipe. Or he may smell the residual, the burned essence of the pipe bowl, that again, there's no smoke, but you might be able to perceive the aroma of the burnt briar. So I was sitting there thinking, gosh, if I take this pipe in there, he might smell the residual after effects of me smoking the pipe, and I might get yelled at. So I remember I spent a lot of money on this, and I thought there is no way, and that I'm going to just, get rid of this. I'm not going to smoke it once and throw it away. It's not a disposable pipe. So I remember having to kind of very, very quietly and kind of, I think I wrapped it up in plastic, and, just so there would be no aroma of the pipe, and it was just like, oh gosh. But I do remember that there were the times that I did smoke this on the back lot there. It was usually in the summer evenings, and I just really enjoyed that. So, yeah, I really, really love this Peterson. It's a nice pipe. It smokes really well. Probably one of the best smoking pipes that I've got. Again, no tongue bite whatsoever. So anyway, well, I thought I'd get a head start on this month's video. And but I got to tell you, and again, maybe some people see and hear things that I'm just not picking up on, but apparently this young girl, this young woman, Sydney Sweeney, I guess she's made a couple of movies, and she's a drop dead gorgeous young woman. There's no doubt about it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But apparently she has caused, I guess, a big brouhaha with the woke agenda people, and I'm gonna weigh in with my opinion on that and why I think it's so. I think there's a couple of reasons, but again, I've seen the ads for her American Jeans, I guess it is, and I mean. I guess, in fact, the only reason why I even saw the ads only is because of the backlash from the liberal left and the woke trolls. Trolls, I think, is an appropriate word for a lot of them because they look like trolls and they act like trolls, and that's part of the problem. We'll, I guess, try to elucidate that for you all. So anyway, but apparently they're trying to say that this is a white supremacist Nazi dog whistle video or commercial. And I'm like going, wow, how in the world do you tease out all of that negativity from a 15-second commercial? I think there's like 3 or 4 spots on this commercial that's a campaign. And okay, before I came to set up my video and audio recording equipment tonight, I saw one last video. And apparently, again, I didn't watch all the video, so maybe I'm a little bit misinterpreting. But some people are saying even Catholics are opposed to this video, this campaign. And I was kind of shocked. And one guy said it was kind of like pornographic or something. I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. Look, you can see on your browser young women who are equally attractive, if not more so, flaunting far more and wearing far, far less. Now, is it true that she's a very attractive, curvy young woman? Of course it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the fact that she's an attractive young woman. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the jeans that she wears are pretty baggy, and yeah, she definitely has a cleavage. You know, a lot of women do, I've noticed, and there are probably women that, wearing evening dresses that show probably more, plunging décolletage, kind of things. But, again, and I thought, well, I can understand maybe it might appeal to, okay, supposedly maybe it's a temptation for some men and young men in particular, okay. And they've even made it clear that as far as the campaign goes, they're targeting Gen Z, I guess, guys. But I think what they're really targeting more than Gen Z guys, they're targeting the Gen Z girls, and that's really kind of the problem. And again, I'll try to explain that in just a moment. So again, I don't think that certainly, again, she can't help being herself. And again, she's pretty much, she's not walking around in a lace bra and a thong or something like that. I mean, to me, that would be like way over the top. I mean, clearly inappropriate, no, gratuitous, salaciousness. Sure, that would be, yeah. Well, obviously you're catering to males and blatantly so. Okay. But I really don't think so. I mean, you look at her and she's just naturally an attractive person. And that's really where the problem is. And one of the things that I guess they have been trying to, again, spin, the left or the woke left, is that somehow this is all Nazi code language and white supremacy code language, and it's like, no, it's not. And I'll just cut to the bottom line. I'm going to, do a little bluff here, bottom line up front. Basically, what is really going is the fact that maybe for the last 5 years, especially, maybe 10 years, it's kind of been evolving, or whatever. You can't be putting attractive people on display. You can't be highlighting them or showcasing them. For some reason, innate beauty is wrong. Now, again, I hear some people say, well, real beauty is from within. And that's absolutely, I agree with that 100%. But here's the thing. People on the woke left, if you look at them with their tie-dye hair, their green hair, their blue hair, and and multicolored, modeled hair, and shaved on one side, and piercings all over their face, and tattoos all over their body, and most of these people look hideous. And it's almost like it's in their book, it's against the law to be naturally attractive and beautiful. It's kind of the war on beauty, I believe. And they're jealous, they're envious. That's the bottom line up front. These people have been jealous and envious their whole lives. Okay, they're overweight, they're unattractive, they don't have good genes, okay? Now, the reality is that for most of us, I think, and again, this is when I grew up, you kind of figured it out. It's painful, especially if you're a girl, I guess, to know that you're either a plain Jane or you're just not, you just don't have it, you don't have it in the cards, kid, And you got to figure out how you're going to now integrate into society and find your niche to where you're going to be socially accepted and even, and maybe appreciated. Because if you don't get the beauty cards, then you're going to have to figure out, well, how do I communicate with people? How do I get people to like me for me, okay? And again, I think a lot of us growing up, you just kind of begin to realize that, okay, I'm not the guy in the room that girls are going to want to gravitate to. Maybe a couple girls might want to talk to me, and maybe from that conversation we might develop a friendship, and that might lead to something. Okay, so again, maybe not hideous, but obviously I'm not the who's Brad Pitt. I guess he's one of the few actors that I kind of are Leonardo DiCaprio, although he's getting kind of bloated in his later years. He's getting he's getting like a little chipmunk now, Maybe that's just a role he's playing, I don't know. Alvin and the Chipmunks, starring Brad Pitt, or Leon DiCaprio as Alvin. Oh, okay, Dave. Anyway, but yeah, you grow up, and that's the thing about accepting the reality of who you are and getting on with life, Again, Sydney Sweeney today is absolutely a beautiful young girl. She looks to me like a young girl, but I guess she's in her 20s. Maybe she's pushing 30, I don't know. But yeah, she's pretty. She's good looking. She's nice to look at. It's nice to look at nice people. But I guarantee you in 30 years, she's not going to look like that. Now, she might, if she does the right things, she can maybe hold on to part of her natural beauty, and through the years, if she takes good care of herself, she doesn't become a crazed drug addict, alcoholic, and living on Skid Row after 10 years of fame and fortune, and then blows it all. A lot of them do. Anyway, story for another time, another idea for another time. But anyway, so again, you just kind of in life, you figure out kind of your place in the world, and then you adapt and you overcome, and you get on with life. Again, a lot of the things that I think have motivated the people in the alphabet community are the fact that most of them, not all of them, there's nice looking people in the alphabet community, to be sure, and some maybe even are very, very photogenic, very nice looking, but I think the majority of these people that are, and again, I call them trolls because that's what they are, And it's not just because they look like trolls. I think their physical outward manifestation really stems from the internal part of their lives, where they're just so ugly inside that now they want to show the whole world because they're angry. They're angry. They're envious. They're jealous. Instead of being able to say, well, hey, that person, when it came to being in the pretty line, they got a lot of extra pretty, and God bless them. But a lot of people were born with a lot of ugly, and unfortunately, they allowed it to poison their souls. And I still kind of think that the majority of the people that are in the alphabet community were just basically people, maybe average people, and they were envious of maybe the homecoming queen or the jocks or whatever. And instead of trying to be gracious about it and say, okay, look, not everybody's going to be, the homecoming queen or the football guy. Not everyone's going to have those opportunities or the genetics that make a person able to do those things. And how do you deal with that? You're going to be hateful and bitter all your life because you got dealt a shorthand, or are you going to try to find other positive ways to still interact with society and be a valuable member of society? But you look at the majority, I would say, or at least a good 50% of the people that are, in the woke movement, the DEI woke movement, they've got no septum rings, they got the metal, piercings, they look grotesque, they look like something from hell. The tattoos and everything, it's like, boy, the ugly tree really fell on them hard. And they basically started, branching out with the ugly tree, instead of trying to minimize their ugliness, they just celebrated it and shoved it in your face. And that's what I think a lot of people were getting really tired of. In the end, I think that for the last 5 years, especially, we have been bombarded with this woke agenda, basically, condemning whether it's people that are beautiful or people that are of different, they've been promoting people that are not beautiful, people that are, again, a lot of them look like trolls. They act like trolls, they talk like trolls, so, if it looks like a troll, walks like a troll, and talks like a troll, it's probably a troll. They defy you. How dare you celebrate anything that's we would consider normal and beautiful? And again, that was part of the Mullen-Dulvaney campaign. And this is the other thing I was going to say, is I think that a lot of it is, on their part, they're trying to get retribution for Dylan Mulvaney going down in flames, because they saw what happened when they tried to push their agenda on the whole country, and I dare say the whole world, and the world basically said, we're not accepting that, Dylan Mulvaney, you're not a woman, never have been, never will be, you're not a girl, you can't celebrate girlhood because you aren't one. And we rejected that message outright. Look at Bud Light. Bud Light tanked down, billions and billions and billions of dollars, whereas American Eagle, they were kind of flatlining, and then all of a sudden their stocks jumped up exponentially. They're enjoying this campaign. They're riding high. They're doing great. So, but I think the backlash is that they're trying to make up for what happened to Dylan Mulvaney, because basically people rejected that message outright. Look at all the boycotting of Bud, and so what they're trying to do is they're trying to boycott American Eagle, and they're trying to attack Sweeney. Good luck. I don't think it's going to register. And I think another thing too that I'll say is this. The ad that they really want to, they're really jealous of. The bottom line is these people are envious and they're jealous of this beautiful young girl. That's the real message. But now they're trying to spin this white supremacist Nazi message in this advertisement. And again, like I said, I didn't see it. I saw a playful play on words, jeans and jeans. Okay. But here's another thing I think that's also threatening to the woke alphabet mafia people, because she says that, her good genes are passed on, and they influence things like hair color and eye color and, all these other things. What else do genes influence? Your biological sex. Yeah, your objective biological sex. Again, that's probably hitting a little too close to home for a lot of these people who have been brainwashed to believe in alternate, sexual identities. How dare you say that sex is predetermined? In the inimitable words of Mr. Rogers, if you're born a boy, you stay a boy. If you're born a girl, you stay a girl. Only boys can grow up to be the daddies, and only girls can grow up to be the mommies. Yeah. Yep, genes also determine our biological sex, folks. And that's probably another message that they don't want to be reminded of, because they think that sexuality and gender is self-determined. I get to make up what I want to be. And again, a lot of this has been, and you know what? I'm going to put the blame where it belongs. These folks have forced this crazy agenda on the rest of our country, and the country's tired of it. Talk about, all these fatigues. I would say that there's this whole, trans fatigue that's just, we're done with this. We're tired with this. And I really do think that for better or for worse, we are probably seeing the dismantling, if you will, of the woke ideology. Now, it may come back with a vengeance at some later date, who knows? But I really do think that people deep down inside, they just want to live their lives, and they want to live normal lives, okay? If you want to, if you're a good-looking person, great. If you're an average-looking person, great. I just want to live my life. I want to pay my mortgage. I want to raise my kids. I want to build my business, They really don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be told that, well, we need to have more inclusion. That's one of the things I really don't like about my radio station. I mean, it's from my alma mater, Sac State, California State University, Sacramento. And every time they get on the radio, they play great music. And I've told them, I've called them during pledge drive, say, you know what, I really, really love the music, but I really dislike your politics. Because they're always talking about the underprivileged minorities that were misrepresented and all this stuff, and all these people were, mistreated, and they were ignored, and they were denied, so they brought some of these people that they recently discovered, maybe 100 years ago. There's a black woman, I think her name is Florence Jenkins or Florence Foster or something like that. She was a black lady. And and they play her music almost exclusively, it seems like. And they're always talking about how mistreated the women were, and how it was horrible for women, and they couldn't be composers, and they couldn't be musicians, and it's so bad for the women and the minorities and all this stuff. And it's like, please stop trying to prosecute the civil rights movement. I say, play their music and celebrate their music and celebrate them, but don't make it like, oh, these people were so marginalized, and they were so mistreated, and they were with all this inequity and injustice, and oh, please, every single day it's it's women's rights and all this minority stuff, and it's like, give me a break. A lot of these people that they're trying to celebrate and say, look, this woman wrote this. Well, okay. And I would say, again, I studied music. I wrote music in college. And, is it a competent musical piece? Yeah, absolutely. Can you listen to it? Yeah, absolutely. Is it great? No. There's a reason why Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, and some people out there, and the Beatles, no. Bela Bartok, okay, are great, is because their music has withstood the test of time. There were a lot of competent composers that never got the limelight or the notoriety or the fame that these other composers did, because their works, although they were competent works, they weren't great. You know, I'm sorry, there's can only be one MVP. There can only be one or two great people. The GOAT. Greatest of all time. Not everybody can be that. Okay, and so these people, they get so upset. Oh, you basically didn't like this person's music because they were black, or because they were feminine, or they were male, female. They're women. You oppressed women and minorities, and oh, how terrible. And it's just like, it gets so tiring. It's like, why can't you just enjoy the music for what it is? You can still celebrate the composer, but you don't have to put all the negative baggage of, oh, these people were so downtrodden and they were so oppressed, and again, it's the victim politics, the victim Olympics. People are really getting tired of that. Getting tired of all this racial stuff. It's like there's some ugly things that are happening in our country, and I gotta say, I don't think Dr. Martin Luther King would, if he were here today, he would be in favor of things like BLM and these black groups that are now becoming very militant and hostile. I think he would try to tell them, look, that wasn't my dream. So anyway, I just think that the whole Sydney Sweeney thing is really kind of funny, because people are trying to make it into something that it's clearly not. And again, if you see the commercials, they're kind of really innocuous. There's nothing really going on, whether it's what's the word I wanted to use? Salacious. Is that she's not really, again, yes, I'm not going to lie, she's an attractive young woman, she's healthy, okay, but she's not like, I think, doing a strip tease and doing something really super out there. I mean, you see a lot more salacious stuff, like I said, even, and some advertisements. I think the Abercrombie and Fitch catalogs were soft porn, a lot of them. What's the other one? There's a couple of those that kind of cater to the very young people that are Tommy Hilfiger, I guess that's another one that was, and this is actually going back maybe almost 20 years too. So these brands maybe have fallen out of favor, or they're not considered chic anymore, But again, they appeal to salaciousness and sensuality, Again, people want to be attractive and they want to be accepted, and so what do? Well, the kind of the shortcut to all that is be sexual, and then that way, and if you are a nice looking person that's sexual, you're going to get attracted. I mean, you're going to be noticed, you're going to get attention, maybe unwanted attention, but you're going to get attention, okay? And again, everybody wants to be valued for who they are. They want people to accept them. They want to be part, not a part, but they want to be a part of something, of a group, of a community, a tribe, if you will. Most people want to blend in. They want to be a part. And so they find ways that make themselves attractive and desirable and, acceptable to the general public, so people will want to spend time with them and get to know them and befriend them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just think that trying to make this into a Nazi propaganda thing is just, again, it's almost like we are living, and it's scary because I never thought I'd live to see it, but I think I am, where again, I'm sorry if I upset some of you by saying this, but there is an anti-white mentality in society now, and that's just as bad as when it was back when poor innocent black people were being lynched and being persecuted. Okay, those things were wrong too, but to reverse all that racism now, and even declare, and for some people even say, well, I'm not racist, I can't be racist because I'm black. Well, if you hate white people, you're a racist. If you hate a person of any other race or color or creed, you're a racist, okay? So you don't have the luxury of saying that. You go like, well, we've been so oppressed, we can't be racist. No, you can be just as racist as the next person. Now, I'm hoping that there are still a lot of good people out there, and I'm sure there are, and I think there are a lot, who don't look at skin color. They don't like, oh, that guy's a black guy, or that guy's a black, or that's a black girl. You know, they kind of, you know, like there's a lot of people that I watch online that I enjoy their content, and a lot of them are black people, and it doesn't matter. I mean, don't care. They have good content, and some of them are funny, and some of them are extremely knowledgeable, and some of them are very articulate. You know, just like white people, just like Asian people, just like, you know, Scottish people and Irish people, and it doesn't matter. You know, that's the point. But to focus and now villainize people because of their race or their skin tone, that's wrong. And that's what we're seeing. And we're now even seeing people being attacked because they're supposedly white, you know, and they're getting beat up for that. That's wrong. Or people shooting people, you know. I think the majority of people are good people. They care about their fellow human beings, and they want to do right by them. They want to be responsible, rational, you know, respectable members of society, and that's all. You know, we all come together over those same shared values. But I'm afraid that a lot of people that are mostly in this diversity, woke DEI, they really hate America, and they hate white people. They hate Christians. They hate Catholics. And, you know, it's funny because you say, well, you know, racism and all those things you probably learned those as a kid. I don't know where these people have learned to hate white people and Christians and Catholics and Jews even, you know, but they've learned it somewhere. We thought we were kind of trying to enlighten people and say, look, you know, you need to look at the content of a person's character, not the color of their skin, you know, or their ethnicity, or, you know, where they live. You know, it's like, hey, this is a person, and you're going to interact with them, and if they treat you with respect and courtesy and honesty, and they try to do right by you, and you try to, okay, that's all that matters. But some people in this country want to destroy this country. They probably want a race war. They want to literally attack people that they have vilified and said, you're the bad guys, you're the Nazis. You know, I heard somebody say today, and I think it's true now, the moment you play the Nazi card, you've lost. So I think that's why, even though there's a quote unquote backlash for Cindy Sweeney, I don't think she's taking it seriously. She's not losing any sleep over it, and I think she's crying all the way to the bank. So I don't think it's going to work. And again, I think the majority of people are just kind of like, hey, it's just a young girl selling jeans. What's the big deal? What's the problem? And I think the problem really is that these people are envious of seeing an attractive young white girl, you know, and for some reason that triggers them. I was like, oh, because in many ways we've seen kind of like this war on beauty. I'm not saying you have to be a white person to be beautiful. You can have an attractive black woman or an attractive black man or whatever. You know, the race is insignificant. But what they've been promoting is obesity, gross, morbid obesity, like that Tess Holliday, you know, and a lot of these other. In fact, a lot of these overweight young YouTube influencer women who are morbidly obese, a lot of them are already dead now, and they're like in maybe their late 20s, early 30s. They're gone because they were celebrating their obesity and they were body positivity. You know, the people that just, again, I don't necessarily judge people with the tattoos, especially the facial ones and all the piercings, but I'm sorry. I still think there's a normal population. The majority of people are what I would consider normal. And those kinds of people, that maybe they'll find their niche in a very specialized community, and God bless them. But if you're going to look for a job, I think just recently, I think there's now kind of I guess there was like some guy talking about he wanted to be a police officer, and he almost got disqualified because he has lots of tattoos. But he was said, well, if they said if you had any neck or facial tattoos, we wouldn't take you. Now, a lot of his tattoos are arms and the sleeve ones, I guess, and on his chest and his back, whatever. He can cover those up. But he said if they told him if you had anything like on your neck or your face, don't even bother applying because you'd be rejected immediately. And I think a lot of businesses are kind of going that way. I think I might have talked about this before. Again, I got some heat and light on that one. I just said a lot of people. I said the funny thing, and again, I wasn't attacking anybody, but I said, isn't it funny that a lot of people who wanted to be unique, see, this is the whole thing. People want to be unique. They want to stand out in a crowd. That's why a lot of these young people want to be trans, because they get all this attention because they're now unique, Wow. And but a lot of people were getting the tattoos for, I think, the same reason, to stand out. Look at me, I'm anti-establishment. I'm giving it to the man, I'm standing up to the big machine type thing, and I'm captain of my own soul, and I'm leader of my own destiny, and all this stuff, and everybody was getting tattoos. Even little grandmas were getting tattoos. Now, maybe they weren't getting facial tattoos and sleeves, although I've seen some women, middle-aged women now, who's got the sleeve tattoos, and I'm like going, lady, what were you thinking? And now they were trying to be unique, and now the majority of people have tattoos. And I said, hey, if you want to be unique today, don't get a tattoo. Oh man, I got some kickback on that one. Oh, how dare you? You're a loser. You're not. And it's just like, oh, good grief, guy. Just look, if you got a tattoo, fine, celebrate your tattoos. You do you. But all of this desire to be unique and standing out. Everybody's got tattoos for the most part. There's a few of us old dinosaurs that probably don't have tattoos, but the only time I thought about getting a tattoo when I was in the Marine Corps. That was the only time I thought about it, and I just never got the. It wasn't like a burning desire. If it had been a burning desire, and I really, really thought it was like, but I just never did that. I don't regret not getting one, but I'm just kind of like going, well, I got a DD-214 that says I was in the Marine Corps. Okay, that's all I need. I don't need a tattoo. But I could see if I had ever gotten a tattoo, I just would have got a simple USMC, and that would have been it. Maybe on the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, the Marine Corps emblem, but that would have been it. But again, that would have been 50 years ago, and hey, and of course we all know that the tattoos fade and they bleed. As far as the colors run together, so it'd probably be an ugly old blackened thing by now on my skin, and it wouldn't even look. It would just look like a big mess, Rob. You would probably be able to still make out it says USMC, but the clarity and the pristineness of the original tattoo, that would have been faded, decades ago. So anyway, I'm grateful that I didn't get one. Like I said, but I came close. But it wasn't to be unique. It was kind of a sign of I belong. I'm part of this fraternity. The Marine Corps. But I just like I said, I never got around to doing it. In fact, I got more into things like audio stuff, and in the Marine Corps, in my pastime, I got into recording things and photography and things like that, and that's what captivated me on my time off. So, and plus, I didn't drink that when I was a young guy. I started drinking in seminary. We won't go there. So if I had been, going to the O Club, the E Club, the enlisted club at night and drinking and boozing it up with my Marine buddies, maybe if I had gotten in that group, I probably would have gotten a tattoo, because that's usually what happens. You get a little soused, a young guy gets kind of drunk, and then he goes with his buddies, and then, let's get a tattoo. Yeah, okay. So you go in together in kind of like a group, and you get your tattoos all together, Anyway, I saw that happen. Actually, I saw that happen when I was in the Marine Corps. When I went back as a chaplain candidate for the Navy, we had guys. And again, I wasn't tempted, but a lot of the guys in the chaplain candidate and these are Christian guys, most of them, different denominations, of course, but they all went and got a shark tattoo on their calf. There was something about shark was like our mascot or something. I forgot why, but like there were 4 or 5 of them that all went out and got shark tattoos on their legs. And they're like, yeah, I got my shark tattoo, so I'm a member of the Shark Club or whatever it was. I forgot what the little clique was, and this guy, we were sitting at the Hotel Del Coronado on one of our last nights, and we were sitting there smoking cigars and drinking brandy. And he goes, yeah, you want to see my tattoo? Me and Tuna and some other guys got tattoos. And I went, oh, okay. I mean, it was cool. I mean, I'll say it was colorful. It was fun. It was, it wasn't anything obscene or anything. It was just, I think it was a shark on a surfboard. And I just thought, well, that's cool, but was I tempted to go out and get a shark tattoo? No. But anyway, so like I said, people are looking to be unique and stand out, and so they can be what? So they can be accepted. That the bottom line, to be accepted, that's a normal human desire, and we all have that. But I think a lot of people are selling their souls just to get get attention, and you don't have to do that. I think for me, just recognizing who I am, and even though sometimes I can be kind of awkward with some people. I'm sure there are some people out there that are they're of a different social status, and let's be honest, there are social statuses even in our country. And, excuse me, and sometimes it's kind of painfully obvious that I really am out of my league in some circumstances, even as a priest. I go into certain places and these people are, not to say that they're better than me, but they're just different. And I'm not really a part of their group. I can maybe kind of go in and out of certain groups and maybe to the extent of ministering and, being a part of a small part to help them where I can. But again, part of it is just accepting yourself for who you are and not looking down on yourself, not feeling sorry for yourself, not beating yourself up because you don't have the right genes, literally, or you're not as photogenic as the next person, or maybe you don't have some of the talents that other people are born with. Or again, a lot of times people, they kind of figure out things and they capitalize, they leverage what they have. Okay, Sydney, is it Sydney? Sweeney, obviously she knows what her attributes are, and and she's going to maybe put kind of refine those and leverage those for her benefit. Okay, but maybe she's not the brightest girl in the class. Maybe she feels inadequate in certain areas. I mean, we all feel inadequacies in some parts of our lives. So yeah, she obviously, when it came to pretty, she really climbed up the pretty tree, okay? But again, that's fleeting and it only lasts for so long. And so, there's other things in life than just being pretty, Anyway, so I feel sorry for the people that are angry at this ad. I mean, golly, there are more important things in this world than looking at a pretty girl in a set of jeans. I'm sorry. If that's going to rattle your cage, that's going to trigger you, I don't know what to say. It's like I said, I've seen the ads. They're kind of just, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not really even, they're not that interesting to me. I mean, when I look at them, I say, yeah, it's a pretty girl in a set of blue jeans. What's the issue here? What's the problem? It's like, I'd rather be learning more about audio interfaces than, it's like, if I saw a Sydney Sweeney commercial and somebody trying to tell me how I can hook up this microphone, believe it or not, I'm going to go to the video that says, hey, have you tried this new trick? Because if you do this, that microphone's going to work for you. I'm on that like white on rice. Oh, is that racist? Is that too racist? Oh, sorry. But seriously, I mean, there are other more intriguing and important things to be concerned about, I was probably a little bit nervous about the tsunami after the Russian, was it 8.8 earthquake the other night. I was more concerned about possible, flooding on the coast here, but I don't think that happened, thanks be to God. Yeah, I'll close with this. Last night I was, trying to get some sleep, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden I heard this big bang on my deck, and I thought, what in the world was that? I kind of knew what it was. So I got up, and sure enough, I looked out the window, and there's a little fat mama bear, rolling, waddling down my deck, right down below my window, and a little baby bear right next to it. And they stopped, and they kind of sat down, and they started scratching themselves. And I thought, boy, I sure hope that bear doesn't come back, because that was a big mama bear. Not huge, but it was big enough to where if it wanted to, it could have. I left my windows open, unfortunately, and I'm just so grateful that that bear did not find something attractive, because it would have come in. I would have been, it would have gone to the refrigerator and tore up the refrigerator, would have torn up the kitchen. No, God knows what else, but so I'm making sure I close my windows tonight. But fortunately, it just kind of sat there for a few minutes, and then it just kind of wandered off into the night with the baby bear, and that was the end of that. But man, there was a big bang on my deck, and I kind of thought, uh-oh, could that be what I think it is? And sure enough, roly-poly mama bear and a baby bear, but hey, I like bears. I still like them. I think they're exciting. They're exhilarating. Love them. Anyway, so I think I've vented my spleen on Sweeney. Yep, there's more important things in life. And sometimes it doesn't really pay to get all aerated about all these political things. Just let them go, for the most part, I mean, today's political headlines they age like old sour milk. They don't have a long shelf life, and it'll be on to the next outrageous thing that somebody will be upset about, So anyway, like I said, like I like to say in most of my videos, light up your world and light up your pipe and light up your world. All right. We'll see you all in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.